Hey guys, my name is Matimio, and today I've finally gotten around to reviewing and checking out the last pistol that is being introduced with the Dragon's Teeth DLC, and that is the Unica 6. This is a really cool and interesting weapon, and when I first started using it, I thought I was supposed to use it like the Magnum. It looks like a Magnum, it sounds like it, it's got the same type of reload mechanic, and I thought I was going to be able to have pinpoint-like accuracy, I thought I was going to be able to snipe people from a fair distance away, and while that still is somewhat possible with the Unica 6, it's not the Magnum. It has a different type of playstyle, a very satisfying playstyle. Admittedly, I am loving it right now, but it is definitely not the same as the Magnum. And so the biggest difference between the two guns is that the Unica 6 simply doesn't hit as hard as the Magnum at a distance. It still does 56 damage per shot up close, so it has that awesome one-shot killing potential as long as your accuracy is amazing, but the further out your target goes, the damage drops off significantly. At 37 meters away, which really isn't all that far, it only does 28 damage per shot. And so what this means is that you now need to get 4 bullets into your enemy if you're not getting headshots, which is going to be very difficult at that range. You need to get 4 bullets into your target to drop them from 100% to 0. The downside of it though, and while that doesn't sound all that bad, especially if this was an assault rifle, which it's not, but the Unica 6 only comes with 6 rounds in its magazine. And if you're able to get 4 out of your 6 shots into a target that's 40 meters away, and they're moving and they're zigzagging around and trying to make themselves a harder target, you are MLG Pro. Like, you are probably one of the best battlefielders out there. And so trying to go for those long ball shots, kind of what you would do with the Magnum. Like, the Magnum is known for sniping people at long range. It's just simply not as possible with the Unica 6 because the damage model really doesn't support that type of playstyle. Another thing that hampers this role is that it doesn't have the best aim down sight accuracy, especially when you compare it to the Magnum while standing still. It's still going to do fine up close. Like, don't worry, it's not like your bullets are just flying in random directions. You're still going to be able to get your headshots within, like 20 meters. But once you reach that point where your target is a good 40 meters away and you're only doing 28 damage per shot, the aim down sight accuracy starts to become a problem because even though it looks like you should be getting that headshot, there's that slight bullet deviation in there where you may not even get a hit. It may fly off just above their head, it may fly off to the left a little bit, maybe you'll get an upper chest shot, but it gets to the point where trying to get that pinpoint-like accuracy with the Unica 6 at those extreme distances becomes a little bit more challenging because of that aim down sight accuracy. That being said though, and the good news about all this is that the aim down sight accuracy while on the move with the Unica 6 is far superior compared to the Magnum or the ever popular Desert Eagle. You guys know when you use those other skill cannons, if you are on the move, it's going to be difficult to line up your shot. Like, the bullet deviation goes all over the place when you're moving with the Magnum, and so you essentially have to stand still, and when you're standing still, that leaves yourself vulnerable to anyone that's looking at you. Like, a moving target is a lot easier to hit, or a lot harder to hit, than a stationary target. And so if you're someone like me who likes to move around a lot, you like to have some fancy footworking, the Unica 6, while its aim down sight accuracy isn't amazing while on the move, it is a lot better than the Magnum or the Desert Eagle. Some other great features of this gun is that it has a pretty good recoil pattern. Actually, it's almost identical to the Magnum. It's got a vertical recoil of 2, which is high, but that's basically true for all the skill cannons in the game. It's got a first shot multiplier of 1, which is very low, which is awesome, and then has a left kick of 0.2 and a right of 0.2. You compare that to the Magnum, pretty much identical across the board. And so if you are comfortable with that gun, you're going to feel right at home with the Unica 6. It's also got a great rounds per minute. Its RPM clocks in at 210, and while that's not the fastest out of the skill cannons, that would go to the SW40 and the Desert Eagle coming in at 220, it's only 10 less than them. And so if you round the corner, there's a guy directly in front of you, you're going to have the RPM and the damage to take them out absolutely no problem. But one of the biggest drawbacks of the gun is that it takes an incredible amount of time to go through the reload animation. Admittedly, the animation itself looks amazing. It's got a cool flair to it. It looks awesome. You're gonna feel cool when you're going through it. But it takes a staggering 4.1 seconds to go through that animation. And so if you're running around with this as a primary, which I don't recommend, like, it's a secondary, most people aren't going to do that. But if you need to go through that animation to get another round back in your magazine so that you can actually take another guy out, it's actually probably faster to switch on over to your primary weapon, go through that reload animation, because if you're using using basically any other weapon in the game, you're going to be able to go through that animation faster than the Unica 6. And so, yeah, it looks awesome, but that 4 seconds is going to feel like an eternity. And so hopefully all this information has sort of demonstrated to you why the Unica 6, while it's still a skill cannon, like it still requires a lot of skill on the part of the player to have that pinpoint-like accuracy and to get those headshots, it's not meant for long range, or it's really not all that effective at long range combat to something like the Magnum. It looks like the Magnum, it shares a lot of the same characteristics as the Magnum, it just doesn't have that same type of playstyle. But probably the biggest difference between the two, actually I probably should have mentioned this before, is that there doesn't seem to be any trigger delay at all. I still don't know why DICE decided to put trigger delay on any of the pistols in the game. I find that it's just a stupid addition. I know that they were going for the whole realistic route, but for a gameplay experience, it's just infuriating. To have that in place, granted they did tweak it a little bit, it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be, but any trigger delay at all makes my head want to explode. And so maybe that's why I've gravitated more on over towards the Unica 6, because at least as of right now, I've heard there's maybe some rumors that they're going to be adding it once the game launches, or once we actually get the Dragon's Teeth DLC, they're going to add the trigger delay. But I'm crossing my fingers that that isn't the case, because right now the Unica 6, because it doesn't have that trigger delay, as long as I'm playing within, you know, about 15 meters of my enemy, it is an amazingly satisfying weapon. The attachments, I was just sticking with the red dot sight. I know that a lot of people claim you're not cool if you're not using the iron sights, because apparently if you're using a skill cannon, you have to use the iron sights like you were in the Wild West. But I couldn't hit anything if I went down that route. They're okay, as long as you're used to it, I guess the iron sights work, but I basically had to use the RDS if I was going to hit anything on the battlefield. I know that some people were using the heavy barrel. It did increase that recoil, which made it a little bit more unruly, but if you wanted to be a little more accurate at extreme distances, that was one way to go about it. It would make that aim down sight accuracy a little bit better, so that was another path that I know some people were going down. But overall, pretty much just use whatever attachments you're comfortable with. I enjoy the red dot sight because I can't stand the iron sights, but pretty much if you want to go naked, it is still an amazing weapon. But overall, the Unica 6 is a very satisfying weapon to use. When I first started using it, I was stupid and I tried to go for long range targets like I was using a Magnum, and while it's still possible as long as you are amazingly accurate, this is more of a skill cannon that you're going to want to use up close. And when you do that, and when you get the hang of it, and you start to learn the ropes and the mechanics of the gun, you are going to have a lot of fun. But that's about it for today's review of this amazing weapon. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of the Unica 6. Would you like to see some things tweaked here and there? It is on the CTE server for a reason, so would you like to see its effectiveness buffed? Would you like to see it nerfed? Let me know down below. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one, and take it easy.